Hey everybody, welcome back. Finally got a chance to make it back outside today. It's a little bit before sunset, but it's finally nice and bright and sunny and actually clear enough, and the wind isn't blowing like crazy to where I could actually do an outdoor video and you'd be able to hear me. I did attempt it on one other day and just realized I'm going to have to go inside to do this because the wind blowing across the mic was so incredibly bad you could not possibly hear a thing I was saying. And I guess I'll just dive right into today's topic, and it is, it is all a lie, every bit of it. And when I say it's all a lie, I think it's the perception of sort of modern day what is successful, what's going to make you happy. It gets pushed on us by everything from movies to social media to mainstream media, constantly telling us, you have to aspire to meet this certain look, this certain way of life that you're supposed to really aspire to, that you realistically, for most Americans, we're adapting to the reality of the way our economy, our environment, the environment for dating and everything that we have going on in our lives just doesn't match that metric. It just doesn't match what we're being told it's supposed to the point where people end up feeling utterly depressed, broken down by it, and feeling like they're never going to meet that standard. And the amount of damage that I feel like that does to people's mental health, to their psyche, coming into all of that, it's just incredible. It's just absolutely incredible how much damage that it actually does, because you're thinking that you're supposed to look the way certain neighbors look the way certain, your life is supposed to match this other thing that you're watching from some other place, basically along the lines of neighbors that I've noticed over the years that have pretty big McMansions that they're living in, cars that they can't afford, all this stuff going on that they just can't really keep up with financially, crushing down on them constantly, and they are in a position where they can't survive beyond a couple of months because they're literally upside down in debt. The cars are not paid off. The house is not paid off. None of it's paid off, but they're living in this virtual, perpetual situation where they just owe tons and tons of money, and there's literally no escape from any of it, and they are a few bad months away from losing it all. If something happens health-wise, something happens with their flow of money, they're just going to be wiped out from that. Now, I'm not pointing out all this, trying to point some sort of finger at somebody. It's about raising awareness that we should not be aspiring to that. If it just doesn't suit us, we shouldn't be aspiring to that. So many of those people I've known over the years, they don't actually own any of those things. They actually just look rich and affluent and wealthy in ways that they actually are not at all. Most of the people that I've encountered like that, they look that way, but they are not that way at all. And coming to that realization really helps to free you up. It helps to free you and I up from thinking, oh, well, I need to aspire to do that. I need to get some sort of huge McMansion that maybe I can or can afford on a monthly basis, and desperately try to hold on to that. And I need to get a hold of a bunch of additional vehicles that I can't really afford the payments on, and aspire to a lifestyle where I'm living off all of these credit cards and all of this debt that I really don't have the means to hold on to. And you absolutely don't need to do any of those things. It's completely okay to not do any of those things. And I'm going to tell you, just from a man's point of view, when you get onto social media, when you get online, you are literally inundated at every single turn by people trying to sell you everything from, oh gosh, only fools, those of you that are aware of what that is and understand what I'm saying, coming on there with fake accounts, literally trying to hit you at every turn with some sort of message from some sort of fake account where you're like, where in the world is all this coming from? And literally they're just on there with a fake account trying to sell you sex at every turn. Every ad aimed at you looks like it's something that's half naked or attempting to get you to purchase something or buy something you probably don't need. And you begin to realize that the way that most of society is viewing people is just as consumers. It's not a community anymore. You're just a consumer that they want to be a wage slave, somebody that pumps money into the system, somebody they want as a consumer, and they don't want you thinking for yourself, doing anything differently than any of that, and absolutely under no circumstances leading the way for other people to leave that behind and develop some sort of semblance of happiness or freedom that's outside of any of that. But that is so utterly important. I mean, it really, really is. How are you going to have any level of happiness or freedom if you never face yourself on a spiritual level? If you're never able to have any quiet time, if you're literally running and running and running and running constantly every single day, it's almost like it's intentional. I'll leave that to you all to decide. Some of you have, if you've watched some of my other videos, you figured out what I kind of feel about that. But think about that. Let that sink in for a minute, how intentional all of this is. And think about how much peace you could have when you can kind of breathe in the morning and you're not racked with debt. I myself, over the years, have done everything I can to try and cut back as much on debt, on bills, on everything as I possibly can, just so I don't feel like when I wake up in the morning, I owe so much money that I can't breathe. And although no one's perfect, I've certainly not arrived. I'm still going to be going on this journey through the rest of my life. It is incredibly freeing when you wake up in the morning and you realize you do not have to absolutely scramble because you owe so much money to some sort of institution or whoever, and you actually have your freedom. You bought your time back from all of that. And unfortunately, it does make you aware on some level that you're an outlier at that point. You're somebody who's beginning to think differently. You don't really watch any mainstream news or anything like that. A lot of the stuff that I get is actually from a lot of different sources online that I know that are not really being paid for their information. They're just simply doing independent research, which I know that kind of became a hot button over the years where they started to treat it like, well, you're not going to do your own research. And I heard a comedian say at one point, you mean read and think for myself? Which... funny thing, the more you read and you think for yourself, the more you cut off debt, the more you unplug from a lot of this stuff, you start to wake up in the morning without a sense of agitation. You start to wake up in the morning not feeling like you're in panic mode. And so many people do not understand that. They don't want to understand it. There are people that do not want to be unplugged from that. And they'll actually get angry at you. I remember the first time I even suggested that to somebody who was completely wrapped up in this, living in a McMansion, a sports car, a truck that he couldn't afford. And the minute I suggested, hey, maybe this isn't the way that it's supposed to be because you're stressed out 24/7. You have no idea whether or not you're going to be able to make payments beyond a certain point. And you've got one family member with failing health and you are worried about your health because of certain conditions. Maybe this isn't the way to do it. And he looked at me like I had just spoke Greek backwards to him. I mean, he was just like, no, you can't. What are you doing? Thinking and questioning all of this? You can't do that. You shouldn't be doing this. What is this? And it almost like it frightened him. It was almost like it frightened him to hear that. And I began to realize, I don't like that. I don't want to wake up every single morning worried about massive levels of debt, trying to aspire to an image that I'm supposed to go after because somebody told me I should go after it. And I think as that began to sink in and I began to realize I don't need to do any of that. We don't need to. Much of what we think we're supposed to be is based upon a lie. Here it comes. I think it's either the birds or the frogs coming off from the distance. There's a little pond over here. Just being able to get out during the day and try to spend some time in nature and just enjoy it a little bit and, breathe and not feel like you're in the middle of everything. It's worth it. It's completely worth it if you can. Funny that I say that. I keep hearing a plane off in the distance. There's actually a small airport not far from here, and they want to chime in and remind me that I'm not ever quite too far from civilization, but I find it invaluable when you can get away and you can focus on yourself and you don't feel like you are indebted and that your time is completely owned. I don't know how many of you feel that way or aspire to that, but I'm sure probably a lot of you do. I'm sure that's probably why you've wandered over to this channel and you're listening to me talk about it all. It's definitely something that I've come to value more and more as I've gotten older. And for those of you that value that as well, I've done some other videos on this, but I'm kind of doing a little bit of a fresh take, and it was on my mind today as I was actually hiking a little bit, that this would be a good subject to bring back up and talk about again. And I'm just curious, what do you guys do to try and get personal peace? What do you do to try and get out of debt? It's always interesting when you share your comments here, because other people pick up on it and they realize, oh wow, that's a really great idea. When you share stuff like that and you give your experiences, it builds other people up. They realize, oh, everybody's going through this stuff. It isn't just me. Everybody is figuring out ways to get around it and to try to escape having their time being completely owned by somebody else. And if you're one of those people, you don't realize how much maybe a video or comments or just even being somewhat in a community of people that are talking about this really, really helps. So that's pretty much it for today. And I look forward to talking to everybody soon. And as always, drop your comments in there. I want to hear about your stories, what you're doing about all this. And be sure and like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, because if you don't, you're never going to know whatever pops up, because it seems like, I guess that's the way YouTube has been working for quite a few years now. So I look forward to talking to everybody again soon, and hope you have a great day. Try and get outside if you can. Get some fresh air and catch that sunset. And have a great day.